Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 49. The Emperor of Changlu was attacked by assassins outside the palace. Fortunately, he was treated in time and was not seriously injured. The moon hung high in the sky. Yeshu walked out of the prison and raised his head to look at the night sky. He did not have time to change out of the blood-stained fox fur coat he was wearing. It looked like winter plum blossoms were embedded in the snow, and it was a ghastly sight. Yeshu took a deep breath to calm the waves of nausea in his stomach. Today, he had followed Jin Wang back to the palace. After the imperial physician treated his arrow wound, he brought the command sigil that Jin Wang had given him to the prison. A portion of the assassins lying in ambush at the residence were killed by the guards on the spot. When they were caught, another portion committed suicide. In the end, only a few people were sent to prison. But it was enough. Yeshu was escorted back to Yangzin Palace Hall by the guards. As soon as he entered, he saw Jin Wang lazily leaning on a small couch, holding a booklet and reading through it. Other than his face being a bit pale, he seemed to be in good spirits. He did not look like someone who had nearly lost his life half a day ago. This person's recovery ability was truly amazing. "You're back. Quickly come over." Seeing that Yeshu had returned, Jin Wang was about to sit up but he accidentally pulled on his wound. It hurt so much that his face turned pale. He was instantly surrounded by several eunuchs who hurriedly went to help him up. Yeshu quickly walked over and frowned. "Why aren't you lying down on the bed? I was waiting for you to come back so we can eat." Jin Wang placed a pillow behind him and forced himself to sit up. He smiled at him. "You must be tired. Quickly sit down and rest." Yeshu hesitated for a moment, then said, "I'm going to take a bath." He had just come out of the prison. That place did not see sunlight all year round. It was damp and cold, and the heavy smell of blood could not be washed away. Yeshu had been in there for several hours, and the smell on his body was indescribable. Yeshu went to take a bath and change his clothes. When he returned, several eunuchs were placing food on the table. Head steward Gao Jin was helping Jin Wang ladle soup. Jin Wang was injured in his shoulder. Before the injury healed, he could not lift his entire arm. However, as the emperor, there were many people who could serve him in his daily life. Yeshu took the bowl of soup from head steward Gao Jin's hands and sat down beside Jin Wang. "You can all leave." In the past, the two of them didn't need servants to serve them when they ate, but today was a special occasion. Head steward Gao Jin glanced at His Majesty's surprised expression. Seeing that His Majesty did not object, he dismissed the servants in the hall and left Yangzin Palace Hall. Yeshu fed Jin Wang soup spoonful by spoonful. He suddenly remembered that he didn't like serving this person in the past. In this era, imperial power reigned supreme, and the person in front of him was an emperor. With his status, he was supposed to submit to the other man and serve him. Yeshu was not used to it and did not like such an unequal relationship. But now, he no longer had such thoughts. His movements were meticulous and careful. Jin Wang couldn't help but laugh. "Be good and eat by yourself. I am not as weak as you think." Yeshu ignored him. He scooped up another spoonful of soup and blew on it to cool it down before feeding it to Jin Wang. He didn't believe this person's words. This was the first time he had seen Jin Wang so weak. When the carriage returned to the palace, Jin Wang's entire body was covered in blood. His face was paler than the snow on the eaves, and there wasn't a trace of blood in it. Whenever Yeshu thought about how he had caused Jin Wang to be in this state, his heart ached so much that he almost couldn't breathe. Jin Wang asked again, "How did the interrogation of those assassins go?" Yeshu paused and lowered his eyes. "The Imperial Guard didn't come back to report." "They did." Jin Wang chuckled. "They said that your methods were exceptional and that you were able to make those people confess after just little interrogation." "How could it be that exaggerated?" Yeshu shook his head. "I've already investigated. Those people aren't part of the left prime minister's faction. Yeshu was still the left prime minister in name after all. It might not be that simple to investigate the background of those people, but it wasn't that difficult to find out if they were truly part of the originals faction. He had only asked a few questions and those people had already made a lot of mistakes. They had admitted that they had only wanted to use Minister Yes' name to cover for their true employer. It was just that they still didn't know who the true employer was. If this was in the past, Yeshu would have been very happy that he had been cleared of any suspicion of assassination. But today, he was faintly disappointed. He had lost another lead on the original. Jin Wang naturally knew what he was thinking, but he didn't mention it. Instead, he changed the topic. Those assassins were well trained. They were most likely assassins who made a living in the Jianghu. This kind of people wouldn't easily betray their employer. It's easy to find their flaws, but it's difficult to pry open their mouths. Actually, it's not that difficult, Yeshu said in a small voice. He looked up at Jin Wang and said, "Give me 3 more days. I'll find out the truth." Jin Wang said, "Shu, you don't have to." Yeshu interrupted, "You've already given me your command sigil. There's nothing I can do if you don't agree, but I can definitely do this investigation." Jin Wang was silent for a moment, then he suddenly laughed. "Idiot, I've already said that I don't blame you for today's matter." Yeshu was slightly startled. He pursed his lips. Jin Wang raised his uninjured hand and touched the side of the other's face. "I was injured because of you. You're upset, so you want to help me find out the truth, right? But in my eyes, none of those things are as important as you." Jin Wang said. "Shu, in my heart, nothing is as important as your safety." He was so moved that he wanted to stand up and hug the person in front of him. But realizing it could affect his injury, his expression froze. The atmosphere that had been brewing was swept away. "I'm not trying to be brave." Yeshu didn't seem to notice his actions. Instead, he said seriously, "Believe me, I only need 3 days. 3 days will be enough." Jin Wang gave up trying to argue. With his injury acting up, he lay back on the pillow. "Then you have to promise me that you won't tire yourself out, that you won't encounter any danger, and that you won't do anything that will harm your body." I promise." "After 3 days, no matter what the result is, you can't continue investigating anymore." "Agreed." Jin Wang muttered to himself for a moment. "There's one more thing." "What?" Jin Wang gritted his teeth and said angrily, "Sit closer." "I can't hug you." Yeshu's ears were a little hot. He put down the bowl of soup and moved closer to Jin Wang. After thinking for a while, he lowered his head and leaned into Jin Wang's embrace. He carefully controlled his strength and tried not to touch Jin Wang's injury. He gently rested his head on the other's shoulder. "Is this okay?" Jin Wang raised his uninjured arm and wrapped it around Yeshu's waist. Jin Wang had just taken a shower, so there was still a faint scent of water and soap on his body. He sniffed lightly and deliberately said, "Is this it?" Yeshu looked at him from the bottom up. Jin Wang looked away and said vaguely, "My injury hurts. It hurts so much that I can't eat." Yeshu leaned forward and kissed him gently on the lips. The kiss was short and brief. Yeshu was a little embarrassed. He tilted his head and said, "That's what you want, right?" That touch was so quick that he almost couldn't feel it. Jin Wang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Little idiot." Yeshu was unhappy. "I'm obviously coaxing you. How am I an idiot? How can you coax someone like that?" Jin Wang looked down at him and said gently, "Lower your head. Let me teach you." Yeshu was a man of his word. Not even 3 days had passed. On the afternoon of the second day, all the officials involved in the assassination were imprisoned. If someone else had done this, it would have taken a lot of time, but Yeshu was different. After confirming that the assassins had nothing to do with the left prime minister, It went without saying who their employer was. Who the culprits were, how to obtain evidence and how to arrest them were all written clearly in the novel. Now that the emperor was injured, no one expected him to hand over the investigation to the imperial consort. No one expected the imperial consort to act so quickly. The officials involved in the conspiracy were swiftly uprooted before they could react. Everyone in the court was shocked. A suspicion that they had never thought of surfaced in their minds. This way of doing things was very similar to Minister Ye in the past. Yeshu didn't care about how the court was discussing this. What he wanted to do was much more than this. On the last day of the 3-day deadline, Yeshu presented a list of names to Jin Wang. This is a list of all the officials involved in the assassination attempt. Most of them can be verified now. If your Majesty doesn't believe me, you can personally investigate after you recover from your injuries, Yeshu said. Jin Wang glanced at the names on the list and smiled. Is this considered cheating? When Yeshu proposed to investigate the truth, Jin Wang was worried that he would be implicated. Who knew? Knowing the future was indeed very convenient. Arresting them one by one for interrogation without any evidence, you're really something. Jin Wang leaned on the bed and said, this list involves many officials. I'm afraid that a slight move will affect the whole situation. If we persecute these people now, we should quickly replace them with trustworthy officials and then find a way to get rid of them, Yeshu said seriously. The spring civil service examination will be in 2 months. It's a good opportunity. Jin Wang looked at him steadily. Yeshu felt uncomfortable under his gaze. What's wrong? Nothing. Jin Wang lowered his gaze. This behavior of Yeshu's was even more similar to the person in his memory. In his memory, this person had also paved the way for him. The certainty and decisiveness in his actions were so dazzling that people couldn't take their eyes off him. Jin Wang didn't say anything else. He didn't even look at the list carefully. He just threw it to the side and opened his arms. Yeshu obediently went over and was hugged. Jin Wang asked, you didn't sleep last night? Yeshu was stunned. Jin Wang's voice turned cold. Have you forgotten that I told you not to tire yourself out? Yeshu's voice was somewhat muffled as he whispered. I didn't do it on purpose. I just couldn't sleep. For the past few days, Jin Wang had been recuperating in bed. Yeshu no longer slept with him on the same bed. He would return to Yongshao Palace to rest at night. However, when he returned to Yongshao Palace, he couldn't sleep even more. As soon as he closed his eyes, he would see Jin Wang being pierced by an arrow and covered in blood. Even when he was asleep, he had nightmares and woke up several times in a single night. Jin Wang gently stroked his back. Looks like I really have to get better soon. Yeshu buried his head in Jin Wang's shoulder and didn't say anything. Jin Wang suddenly asked, do you want to be the supervisor for this year's spring examinations? The spring examinations were held once every 3 years. In the previous spring examinations, Minister Ye had been the exam supervisor. Yeshu was stunned. He understood what this question meant. He held Jin Wang's command sigil and helped him investigate the truth behind the assassination attempt. No one could question it. However, if he wanted to preside over the spring examinations, he had to be an important official. Jin Wang wanted to restore his identity. Jin Wang said, don't say that you didn't think about it. Everyone in the court saw what you did earlier. How could you hide it from them? Yeshu lowered his gaze. He naturally thought of this. If he could calm down, he wouldn't have chosen to personally investigate this matter. However, for the past few days, he had been preoccupied with capturing the people who had harmed Jin Wang. He couldn't care less about these things. Isn't it good to be the Prime Minister? You and I can rule the world together and support each other. However, I still respect your wishes, Jin Wang said. If you want to continue being my imperial consort, I'm naturally willing. You're testing me again. Yeshu laughed. If I agree, doesn't that mean I'll have to stay in the capital forever? Jin Wang generously admitted, that's right. Yeshu struggled out of his embrace. Then I'll have to think about it again. The eunuch brought in a bowl of medicine. After Yeshu finished feeding Jin Wang, he helped him lie down. The medicine had the effect of helping him sleep. Jin Wang quickly fell asleep. Yeshu tucked him in and sat by the bed, staring at him in a daze. Jin Wang wanted to restore his identity. After he regained his identity, Yeshu would no longer be a favored concubine who could only rely on the emperor. Their relationship would be on a more equal terms. They would rule the world together and support each other. What a tempting choice. You're the fool. Yeshu leaned against the bed and whispered, if I'm the dove that takes over the magpie's nest, you'll suffer a great loss. He hooked Jin Wang's finger and gently played with it. But I still want to know the answer. No matter what the answer is, I should face it myself. He straightened up and moved closer to Jin Wang. He stared at his sleeping face and whispered, even if in the end I'm not the person you think I am, I still. Before he could finish his sentence, Yeshu lowered his head and kissed Jin Wang on the lips. He then got up and left the bedroom. The imperial sedan was waiting outside the door. Yeshu boarded the carriage and ordered, go to the cold palace. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 50. The imperial carriage stopped at the cold palace. Unlike the other palaces in the rear palace, this place was extremely cold and cheerless. Along the way, the walls on both sides of the palace were mottled and peeling off, and the roadside was covered in thick snow. It was a sign that it hadn't been cleaned for a long time. After Jin Wang ascended the throne, he dismissed the previous emperor's harem and sealed off all the courtyards in the rear palace. Naturally, it was the same with the cold palace. It had just snowed last night, so Yeshu had the imperial sedan stop outside the courtyard. He stepped on the soft snow to the wooden door. The wooden door had been weathered for a long time and couldn't be closed properly. Standing in front of the door, he could feel a cool breeze coming from the crack. Yeshu's heartbeat inexplicably sped up. He took a deep breath, pushed open the half-closed wooden door, and stepped into the courtyard. The courtyard wasn't as bleak as he had imagined. The courtyard wasn't large. In front of the courtyard, there was a bare peach tree covered in snow. Under the tree, there was a stone table and 4 stone benches. There were only 2 small rooms in the courtyard. There were a few potted plants in front of the rooms, and it was obvious that they had been carefully trimmed. Yeshu walked into the main room. The furniture inside was simple and crude, but it had been cleaned so well that not a speck of dust could be seen. He looked up and saw that the damaged roof in his memory had been repaired. The 4 windows had also been repaired to ensure that the cold wind couldn't get in. This place had clearly been deserted for a long time, but there were traces of people living here. Yeshu walked into the inner room. No matter how clean it was, it couldn't change the simple and crude environment here. There was only a hard bed in the inner room. On top of it was a thin mattress. The fabric had been washed until it was white. He didn't know how long it had been used, but it was covered in sewing marks. The daily necessities in the palace were all distributed by the imperial household department, but no one would send these things to the cold palace. During the most difficult times, the original could only go to other palaces and pick up things that others didn't need anymore. He would then sew and clean them himself, barely getting by this way. Yeshu sat down in front of a small table by the window. The table was missing a corner and was supported by a small piece of broken tile. When he looked up, he saw the faint marks on the wall in front of the table. There was a simple drawing of 2 little people. The little stick men sat side by side. The taller one was hugging the other and laughing happily. The other one was relatively introverted, only slightly curving the corners of his mouth. All traces of the 2 youths' growth had been completely preserved here. Yeshu suddenly felt his eyes sting. He got up and was about to leave when his toes accidentally touched the corner of the table. The small table was light, so when he bumped into it, it shifted slightly, but it revealed the carvings underneath the two little figures. It was a line of small, elegant words. Yeshu and Jin Wang, spring of the 5th year. Yeshu froze. This line of words happened to be slightly shorter than the table, so Yeshu didn't notice it immediately. More importantly, it was not the seal script that was used in Changlu but the simplified Chinese characters that were only used in modern society. The blood on Yeshu's face quickly drained. He stood in place, his gaze fixed on the small line of words. After a while, he finally noticed his abnormal heartbeat. That was his own handwriting. This was what he was looking for. The young Yeshu from back then had used this obscure and unique method to leave behind a unique mark that was enough to prove his identity. Yeshu closed his eyes, his breathing not calming down for a long time. Jin Wang hadn't recognized the wrong person. It wasn't the original that Yeshu had thought. The only one who had been with Jin Wang from the beginning, and now was him. Yeshu closed his eyes, the tip of his nose tingling. Suddenly, a strange sound came from outside the courtyard. The sound came from behind a small house to the side. Yeshu composed himself and followed the sound. There wasn't much snow behind the house. A small path overgrown with weeds extended to the corner of the house. There was a small kennel made of bricks and straw. Jin Wang had built it for the little yellow dog Awang that they had raised when they were young. Yeshu walked over with light steps and carefully parted the grass in front of the kennel. A small yellow dog had its back to him. Its two front paws were hugging a bone that it had stolen from somewhere, and it was happily chewing on it. As if it had sensed someone approaching, the little yellow dog turned its head. Its round black eyes met with Yeshu's puzzled gaze. Yeshu. The little yellow dog. The little yellow dog jumped up with an ah and tried to run out in a panic. It accidentally bumped into the edge of the kennel, almost causing it to collapse. Awoo! The little yellow dog was dizzy from the collision. It staggered to Yeshu's feet. Yeshu silently took half a step back. The dog's first bark didn't sound like a dog's bark. Instead, it sounded like a human's voice. The little yellow dog shook its head and sat down at Yeshu's feet. It looked up innocently. Woof! Why did it sound so guilty? Yeshu narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Awang. The little yellow dog looked at him. Woof, woof. This obviously couldn't be Awang. Perhaps it was because Awang had suffered a lot since he was young, but on the eve of Jin Wang's ascension to the throne, he had died of old age and was personally buried by them in a place with green hills and clear waters outside the palace. However, this dog looked too much like Awang. The little yellow dog's back was light yellow, but its abdomen and forepaws were snow white. Whether it was its appearance or the color of its fur, it was exactly the same as Awang. Yeshu thought for a moment and asked, "Are you Awang's offsprings?" The little yellow dog didn't answer. Yeshu's intuition flashed through his mind, and he faintly came up with a guess. He shook his head and muttered to himself, "Let's bring it back to Yangzin Palace Hall and ask Jin Wang." Then, he loudly called out to the door, "Someone come." Don't. A young male voice rang out from behind Yeshu. Yeshu's expression stiffened and he turned around. The little yellow dog anxiously waved its two front paws. "Just now, were you the one who spoke?" Before he could answer, several servants had already pushed open the door and entered as they asked, "Young master, what are your orders?" The little yellow dog anxiously said, "Don't let them see me." Yeshu glanced at it, then turned to the servants and said, "It's fine, you can all leave first." The servants stopped in their tracks, then obediently said, "Yes, young master." Only one person and one dog were left in the courtyard. Yeshu asked, "Who are you?" The little yellow dog sat down on the ground and its voice sounded a little weary, "The one who brought you here." Yeshu's expression became even more puzzled. The little yellow dog uneasily wagged its tail, then scratched its ears and said vaguely, "It's just that, this is the world of the novel, so of course it's not a place you can enter as you wish, so." "Yeshu, so. I am the system guide of this novel world." Yeshu looked it up and down. "Cough, this isn't my original body, I'm just living in this little yellow dog's body." It was gradually snowing outside. The little yellow dog jumped into the room through the window and skillfully shook off the snow on its body. Yeshu slowly walked in, closed the door and sat down at the table. Yeshu asked, "Can you tell me exactly what's going on here? There are tens of thousands of novel worlds, and the one we're in right now is just one of them." The little yellow dog explained, "Every novel's inner world will gain self-awareness after it's formed. Because of this, it's very easy for them to change the direction of the plot because of their own subjective awareness, or because of a lack of logic in the plot. My job is to find suitable hosts to enter this inner world, then assist them in guiding the characters in the book world and fixing the wrong path." Yeshu massaged his temples. His head was full of questions and he didn't know where to start. He tentatively started. "So you're saying that you pulled me into this world more than 10 years ago?" The little yellow dog slowly said, "Actually. This is your second time here." "Yeshu, what do you mean?" "More than 10 years ago, when you first entered this world, your mission was to help Jinwang become the king, and your reward was to have the healing of your disabled legs." Yeshu was stunned. 3 years ago, when Jinwang ascended the throne, your mission was considered complete. According to the procedure, we will erase all of your memories of this inner world and send you back to the real world." The little yellow dog continued, "The flow of time in the real world and this inner world is different. You spent 10 years in this novel world but only a few days have passed in the real world. When we erase memories, it will affect part of the host's original memories. That's why you don't remember much about what happened before you transmigrated. However, from the time your legs were healed to the time you transmigrated into the book again, you lived in the real world for more than 10 years. You should remember all of this, right?" Yeshu nodded his head. However, he felt that something wasn't right. "Since I left 3 years ago, why did I live in the real world for more than 10 years but only 3 years have passed here?" The little yellow dog hesitated for a moment, then slowly said, "Many years have indeed passed here." Yeshu furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. "After you left, your body was taken over by the system program and continued to complete the plot of the book." The little yellow dog lay on the table, its tail gently wagging. Minister Ye plotted a rebellion and was executed by Jinwang. However, after Minister Ye was executed, the plot went out of control. More accurately, it was Jinwang who went out of control. He became more and more tyrannical, and even incited chaos everywhere, causing the people to have no way of making a living. In short, the storyline deviated from the original route by a great deal, so we had no choice but to redo it. We experimented many times, and even matched other characters in this world with other hosts in an attempt to fix the plot, but it was to no avail. In the end, we discovered that the reason the story deviated was because of you." Yeshu's eyes flickered slightly. The little yellow dog said, "It's rare to find a suitable host. Once you're matched, you became a unique existence. Thus, we had no choice but to bring you back." Yeshu couldn't help but ask, "Then why didn't you appear when I first came in?" "Well." The little yellow dog paused, then grinned at Yeshu, "You've also noticed that we changed some of the basic settings of this world when we rebooted." It looked at Yeshu's slightly bulging abdomen. Yeshu huffed angrily as he tightened his fox fur coat around himself. "Also." The little yellow dog deliberated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth, "We've never had to completely redo a work before. If word of this gets out, we'll be in trouble." Yeshu was annoyed, "Then what if I was killed by him as soon as I transmigrated?" The little yellow dog said seriously, "Death in this novel world won't affect your safety in the real world, so the host can be rest assured. Yeshu remained silent. The little yellow dog sighed, as for me. More than 10 years ago, I used that little dog called Awang as a host body. From time to time, I'd come to see you and check on the progress of the mission. But now, I've been punished by the main system because I haven't been able to complete the mission for a long time. If I can't complete the mission in a day, I'll have to stay here for an extra day. Yeshu looked at the little yellow dog's wagging tail and restrained himself, but he still couldn't help but ask, then haven't you thought about being something else? For example, being a human. What else can I do in the palace? Be a eunuch? I might as well be a dog. Yeshu. The little yellow dog scratched its ear and said, anyway, that's how it is. We're also at our wits' end. Once the mission is completed, you can have any reward you want. Yeshu didn't reply. After a long time, he sighed softly, let's talk about the reward later. You said that the previous storyline deviated from the original plot. Then, what happened to him in the end? At the end of that storyline, Chang Lu sent troops to destroy Western Xia and Great Yan, plunging the entire Central Plains into an abyss of suffering. On the night that the troops returned to the capital, Jin Wang set fire to the cold palace. In the end, he was buried in the sea of flames. By the time Yeshu returned to Yangzin Palace Hall, it was already dusk. The eunuchs had just helped Yeshu down from the imperial sedan, but before they could hold an umbrella for him, Yeshu had already walked quickly into the palace hall. Jin Wang was once again lying down on the small couch that faced the palace hall's door. Seeing that he had returned, Jin Wang smiled gently at him, where did you go? I've been waiting for you for almost 4 hours. It was snowing heavily outside the room. Yeshu had only taken a few steps, but his entire body was already covered in snow. The accumulated snow quickly melted from the warmth of the room, and the surface of his fox fur coat became slightly damp. Coupled with his pale face, he looked rather disheveled. What's wrong? Jin Wang's smile faded as he instructed, what are you waiting for? Help the young master change his clothes and prepare a bowl of ginger tea. Without waiting for the eunuchs to carry out his orders, Yeshu quickly walked in front of Jin Wang, bent down and hugged him tightly. You performed too well in those years. Jin Wang was unable to get over your betrayal and the trauma of personally executing you. His mental state had greatly deviated from the character and he became a true tyrant, a complete madman. On the night that the troops returned to the capital, Jin Wang set fire to the cold palace. In the end, he was buried in the sea of flames. Yeshu's body trembled slightly and he used so much strength that he almost pressed on Jin Wang's wound. Jin Wang naturally sensed that something was wrong, and his voice became gentler. What happened? Yeshu said in a muffled voice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for leaving you. I'm sorry for deceiving you in the past. I'm sorry for my wavering attitude in the past and causing you to suffer so much. Tears slid down Yeshu's cheeks and Jin Wang's shoulders quickly became wet. Yeshu closed his eyes and softly repeated, I'm sorry. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 51. Jin Wang was gently patting Yeshu's back when he heard Yeshu's words. He actually didn't often see Yeshu cry. During his most bitter days, he would only shed a few tears behind his back when he felt extremely wronged. This person had a stubborn personality. Even when he cried, it was silent. It was so quiet that it made one's heart ache. Jin Wang could only feel the body in his arms constantly trembling. He wanted to wipe his tears, but Yeshu refused to lift his head and only hugged him even tighter. Jin Wang felt helpless. He could only use one arm to wrap around Yeshu's body as he slowly said, I didn't see you when I woke up and you made me wait for so long. This emperor was just thinking about what crime to punish you with. He paused, then laughed. Were you afraid that Zhen would blame you, so you came back and did this for Zhen? I didn't, Yeshu reflexively retorted, but he choked on his sobs and turned his head to the side to cough. Jin Wang hurriedly helped him breathe. After Yeshu calmed down, he looked up and saw that the bandage on Jin Wang's shoulder was faintly bleeding. The wound has reopened. Yeshu immediately shouted towards the door, quickly summon the imperial physician. Yangzin Palace Hall's attendants were the best at reading people's expressions. When Yeshu threw himself into Jin Wang's arms, they had all retreated out of Yangzin Palace Hall. At this moment, a group of people were crowding outside the door. When they heard the order, they immediately went to carry it out. Jin Wang took Yeshu's hand and had him sit down on the small couch. The blood on the bandage became more and more obvious. Yeshu's eyes became even redder, but he didn't dare to touch him. Why didn't you push me away just now? Did it hurt? It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt as much as seeing you cry. Jin Wang used his finger to wipe away the tears on Yeshu's face. He smiled carelessly. Besides, I still have to perform well in front of you. How could I push you away? Yeshu lowered his head and didn't say anything. Jin Wang said, "Come closer." Yeshu leaned over. Jin Wang's kiss landed on his eyes. Yeshu's eyelashes trembled slightly. Before a tear could fall, it was kissed away. Jin Wang kissed him carefully. His warm lips brushed past the corners of his eyes and his face. After a long time, Jin Wang pressed against the corner of his lips and asked softly, "Where did you go just now?" Yeshu's voice was muffled. "Where did I go? Did no one tell you?" "Zhen didn't ask," Jin Wang said. "You don't like it when Zhen always investigate your whereabouts, so Zhen won't ask." Yeshu had never mentioned these things to him. This person was an emperor who held absolute power over life and death. He controlled the life and death of the people in the realm, but he had been trying his best to understand him and change for him. Yeshu looked away, his eyes getting hot again. Jin Wang did not ask any more questions and pressed her head into his shoulder. Following the announcement, footsteps could be heard from outside the hall. A few eunuchs half supported and half escorted Imperial Physician Feng as they entered the hall. Yeshu quickly stood up, turned his back and wiped his eyes. Imperial Physician Feng greeted the two of them. Jin Wang only nodded slightly, his attention still on Yeshu. Yeshu's back was facing them. His clothes and hair were a bit messy, and he looked quite miserable. From Imperial Physician Feng's angle, he could see that the other party's eyes were slightly red and swollen. It was obvious that he had just cried. Imperial Physician Feng looked at Yeshu, then looked at Jin Wang. He carefully asked, What happened? Was there a quarrel again?" Jin Wang. "Yeshu." Yeshu went to bathe and change his clothes first. Several eunuchs helped Jin Wang onto the dragon bed. The imperial physician untied the bandages that were wrapped around his body and rebandaged him. The atmosphere in the hall was a bit strange. After a while, Imperial Physician Feng could not help but say, "Your Majesty." Jin Wang interrupted him, "This emperor did not bully him." "Then why did your Majesty make him cry?" Jin Wang. Imperial Physician Feng sighed and earnestly advised, "Your Majesty, an Omega's temper is a bit strange after becoming pregnant, and his mood would fluctuate a lot. However, you cannot be angry with him because of this. Young Master's body is weak and cannot be stimulated. Not only is it not good for his body, it is also not good for the fetus in the womb." Jin Wang. "This emperor did not do anything, this emperor does not know anything." Jin Wang pressed the space between his eyebrows, it really was not this emperor. Imperial Physician Feng's face was full of distrust. If it was not His Majesty, who else could it be that made him cry? Could it be Imperial Concubine and Ben again? Imperial Physician Feng's expression suddenly became very complicated. Ever since he had given the abortion medicine to Yeshu, he had been paying attention to the news in Yangzin Palace Hall. After all, abortion medicine was harmful to the body. If it had been used, the imperial physicians would have received the news. However, there was no news. Since that day, Yeshu had never mentioned this matter again, and Imperial Physician Feng could not find a chance to ask about it. It seemed that young master was too kind and could not bear to do it. Imperial Physician Feng pondered for a moment while bandaging Jin Wang's wound, and then he kowtowed on the ground. Jin Wang frowned. "What are you doing?" Imperial Physician Feng's forehead touched the ground and firmly said, "This official has something important to report. This official hopes that your majesty can dismiss the servants." Jin Wang waved his hand and dismissed the servants. The doors to the hall were closed, and Jin Wang said, "Speak." Imperial Physician Feng closed his eyes and slowly said, "This matter is related to Imperial concubine and Ben." He told Jin Wang about the conspiracy with Yeshu. After he finished speaking, Jin Wang did not reply for a long time. Imperial Physician Feng did not dare to raise his head and explained, "Young master was also worried that this scandal would be exposed, so he kept it a secret until now. This official hopes that your majesty can forgive him. If your majesty wants to blame this official is willing to bear the responsibility." Jin Wang still did not say anything. The large hall was silent, and Imperial Physician Feng's back became covered in cold sweat. After a long time, Jin Wang gently smiled and said with a helpless expression, "So, he asked you for an abortion medicine?" Imperial Physician Feng: "Yes. You even lied to Zhen that it was a tonic, little liar." Jin Wang sighed and said to Imperial Physician Feng, "Help Zhen up." Imperial Physician Feng quickly got up and helped Jin Wang to sit up. Jin Wang looked at Imperial Physician Feng's trembling appearance and thought it was funny. "Don't be nervous, Zhen won't blame you." He paused and said, "Do you want Zhen to tell you a secret?" A moment later, Imperial Physician Feng walked out of Yangzin Palace Hall with a dazed expression. Yeshu quickly finished bathing and changed his clothes before returning to Yangzin Palace Hall. Jin Wang was leaning on the bed waiting for him. Seeing him come, he threw the booklet in his hand to the side and pointed to the teacup on the small table beside the bed. "Drink this ginger tea while it's hot." Yeshu's eyes were still a little red, but he nodded his head like a little rabbit and obediently drank the tea. "Come up." Jin Wang patted the inside of the bed. "There's still some time before dinner. Sleep for a while, I'll accompany you." Yeshu was startled and shook his head. "No need, what if I accidentally bumped your wound?" Jin Wang: "Be good." The two looked at each other. Yeshu took off his shoes and socks, climbed onto the bed from the foot of the bed, and moved to Jin Wang's side. Jin Wang pulled him into his arms. "Relax, the Imperial Physician said that the wound is recovering very well, so there's no problem." Jin Wang patted his shoulder and said in a warm voice. Yeshu softly responded. Jin Wang then said, "Don't go back to Yongshao Palace tonight since you don't sleep well there." Yeshu responded in a low voice, "Okay." Jin Wang's embrace was very warm, and there was a faint smell of herbs and incense in the air. It was very calming. Yeshu took a deep breath and said, "Jin Wang, just now I went to the cold palace." Jin Wang's eyes moved slightly. I discovered a few things, Yeshu's voice was dry, and he didn't know where to start. He had learned too many things from the system, and his thoughts was too chaotic. He had come here for 10 years for the sake of the mission, and he had left without even saying goodbye. There were also the countless rebooted storylines, and this person had suffered so many painful endings. To the system, perhaps it was just a simple failure, but the person in front of him was a live being, and everything he had experienced was also real. Yeshu couldn't imagine how much pain this person had to go through every time he was executed. How much despair did this person have to go through for him to end up like that? Yeshu's eyes started to redden. "All right, why are you feeling bad again?" Jin Wang said softly, "If you can't say it, then don't say it. Don't force yourself." Yeshu: "But..." Jin Wang sighed, "I'm starting to regret it." Why did I force you in the first place? From New Year's Eve until today, when have you ever rested well? If this continues, how can your body take it? From now on, forget all the things that made you feel bad. Don't think about them anymore. If there's anything you want to say, get some rest. We'll talk about it slowly in the future. Jin Wang kissed his forehead. There's still a long way to go. There's no need to rush now. Be good. Yeshu, but I promised. Jin Wang's eyes were smiling as he lowered his head and kissed Yeshu's lips. Little idiot, you've already given me your answer. Ever since a certain fool had clearly received the abortion pill and foolishly promised to give him a chance to perform, but ended up missing the best time to take the pill, the answer was obvious. Yeshu's eyes were blank. When did I? I told you to sleep right now, but you won't even listen to me. Jin Wang narrowed his eyes. Do you really think that I can't teach you a lesson in my current state? Yeshu wanted to reply again, but Jin Wang suddenly turned over and forcefully pushed him into the bed. His Majesty the Emperor had personally proven that even if one of his hands was crippled due to his injury, he could still use his other hand to completely subdue someone. After a while, Yeshu's lips were bright red as he obediently laid down beside Jin Wang. He was completely subdued. The only troublesome thing was that Imperial Physician Feng, who had yet to leave the palace, had to come back and change the bandage of a certain someone again. For the next few days, Jin Wang peacefully recuperated in Yangzin Palace Hall. As for the mastermind behind the assassination attempt at the residence, because of Yeshu's involvement, the investigation progressed very quickly. Within a few days, the cause and effect of the assassination was clearly investigated and the case was declared closed. Yeshu personally delivered the closing document to Yangzin Palace Hall. As soon as he entered, he saw Jin Wang sitting in front of the table, writing something. Why are you up? Yeshu quickly walked over. Didn't I say that I would help you take a look at these? If there's anything I need, I'll ask you. Your injuries. Jin Wang put down the pen and smiled. These superficial wounds are nothing. After lying down for so many days, I'm already fine. Yeshu didn't fall for this and firmly said, no, your words don't count. Only the imperial physician's words count. The imperial physician said that you need to lie down, so go lie down. I'll help you with what you need to write. It's all right, I've already written it. Jin Wang said, I just need to stamp it with the imperial seal. Only then did Yeshu realize that there was an imperial edict placed in front of Jin Wang. Jin Wang moved to the side to let Yeshu sit next to him. Since you're here, take a look and see if there's anything wrong. If there's no problem, then stamp it. Yeshu quickly scanned the edict, then turned to look at Jin Wang. You. Jin Wang grabbed Yeshu's hand that was placed on the table and said seriously, this emperor wants to clear your name. End chapter.